Hello, my name is Bruce Crowther and I'm the founder of the Fairtrade Towns movement, sending you this message from my hometown of Garstang that became the world's first Fairtrade town in April of 2000. So how did it all happen? Well, it's the Garstang Oxfam group that was responsible. We held our first meeting in 1992, attended by just 3 people. There was myself as the chair, my wife as the secretary, and our babysitter. And I have to be honest, we didn't set out to create an international movement for change. We were just 3 people that cared passionately about putting an end to global poverty, and we wanted to do all we could in order to make that happen. The Oxfam group eventually grew in size, but campaigning wasn't easy in those early days when we couldn't even get local churches to use Fairtrade products. But we persevered. And if anything, it was that early frustration, despair that helped fuel our passion and motivation that eventually led us to success. I know that many of you will often feel the same despair and frustration as we felt when you're out there campaigning on the streets in the Netherlands. But there is hope when you consider that a meeting of just 3 people in the rural market town of Garstang can lead to an international movement for change. During Fairtrade Fortnight in the year 2000, we decided to invite all the key players in Garstang that up to that point we were failing to reach. That was all the heads of churches, heads of schools, local businesses, the mayor and local council members. The meal was made up entirely of fair trade and local produce. Being a rural town, Garstang was surrounded by farmers who also suffered from not getting a fair price for their produce. It may not be the same level of poverty as we see in poorer countries in the world. When local farmers were committing suicide just because of the price of a pint of milk, then we realised we had to make that connection. And the local farmers supported our event by providing much of the food that was eaten at the meal. We didn't ask those attending the meal to pay for it, nor did we actually accept any donations from them. I'd learned a long time ago that so often people just give money rather than act when confronted with a message like ours. It was a way of paying off for any guilt that they might feel. And we didn't want their money. Instead, we wanted them to take action by signing a pledge form, stating that they would support fair trade and local produce whenever they were able to. Quite a simple action, but very effective if they all took it. And this was a massive success. Eventually, we got all churches, all the schools, and 95% of all businesses signing the pledge. But most importantly, it led after that, at the public meeting in April of 2000, for the people of Garstang to vote to make Garstang the world's first Fairtrade town. After that, the council followed on from that declaration, supported Fairtrade, and then the 5 founding goals were developed, which enabled other towns, cities and villages across UK to follow in Garstang's footsteps. And these same goals were then later adapted for use in other countries. And as you know, the rest is now history. The important thing about the 5 founding goals is that they ensure the whole community has to be involved in order to become a Fairtrade town. Because the greatest strength of the Fairtrade Towns movement is that they're not just about councils or about schools or businesses or faith groups, but they're about all of them and are much, much more. And what this means is that the Fairtrade Towns are about you, every single one of you sitting there at this event. They're not about the person sitting next to you or about the neighbour back home. They're about you. It means whatever you do in your leisure time, whatever job you do, whatever school your children go to, whatever church you go to on a Sunday or mosque you go to on a Friday, there's some way you can be involved in your local Fairtrade town campaign. And that's what makes them so strong. There are now 2,000 Fairtrade towns in 32 countries across all continents in the world, from the USA in the west to Japan in the east, Norway in the north to New Zealand in the south. And it's due to many volunteers like you across the world. And of course, in the Netherlands, you now have 90 Fairtrade towns, for which you must be most proud. So where do we go from here? Well, it's 35 years ago now when I first learned through Oxfam that a small child dies every 3 seconds due to poverty. And then most importantly, I learned that this was actually man-made. Poverty was man-made, and therefore it's preventable. And therefore, in my view, it's totally unacceptable, and it should be to all of us. That was what motivated me right at the beginning, and sadly, those things are still true today, and that's what motivates me still now. So now more than ever, we need to put an end to this great injustice in the world. There's a need for trade justice, and indeed a need for climate justice. Now more than ever, we need people like you. Campaigning volunteers who, in my view, are the salt of this earth. I want to congratulate you on this, your 10th anniversary of Fairtrade Towns in the Netherlands. But most of all, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank you for all you've done up to now and for all you will do in the future. I thank you and wish you every success.